friends will go to very distant lands. We'll take the dog and then the human. The fun will never end. It's adventure time.
Hello everybody, Ice King here from AdventureTimeCardWars.com. I'm here to talk about Card Wars and explain how to play it. Card Wars is a lane combat trading game, meaning that battles will occur separately in different lanes and that you can make your own decks. The basic object of the game is to reduce your opponent's life from 25 hit points to none. Once you accomplish this, you become the cool guy. Before you start playing, we need to set up the game. There are 5 things you need to do. 1. Choose a deck. 2. Place your landscapes. 3. Decide who goes first. 4. Shuffle your decks and draw 5 cards. And 5. Mulligan if you don't like your cards. Choosing a deck is quite simple. First, you choose which deck you're going to use and pick the appropriate landscapes. Let's say I were to use a pure Cornfield deck. Then I would choose 4 Cornfield landscapes. Similarly, if I were to play a Blue Plains and Cornfield mixed deck, I would probably go for 2 Blue Plains and 2 Cornfields. It depends on what kind of deck you want to play. The next step is important. You place your landscapes in the order you choose and line them up with your opponent. A lane is made up of 2 landscapes that are facing each other. That means one from you and one from your opponent. The next thing to do is decide who goes first. By default, the coolest guy goes first, aka the previous winner. However, if it's the first game, decide who goes first randomly. It's important to note that the first player cannot attack or use floop abilities on their first turn. Once that's been settled, both players draw 5 cards. If you are unsatisfied with the cards you have, you may want to mulligan. Mulligan is the last step. It's simply reshuffling your hand into your deck and drawing 5 new cards. You can only do this once at the start of each game. Now we move on to turn sequence. There are 5 phases in a turn: the ready phase, the draw phase, the main phase, the fight phase, and the end phase. The ready phase happens before the start of your turn, and right after your opponent's end phase. All your exhausted cards become ready. A card becomes exhausted when you either attack with it or use its floop ability. An exhausted card must be turned sideways or horizontal to show it's exhausted. To ready a card, simply turn it upright or vertical to show it's ready. The draw phase is the beginning of your turn. That means that card effects that happen at the start of your turn resolve now. In the draw phase, you simply draw a card. However, you must first resolve all effects that occur at the start of your turn in any order you wish before you get to draw from the draw phase. The main phase is where most of the action happens. Every turn you receive 2 free actions to use. You can spend these actions to do various things, such as play cards from your hand, or in some cases, use effects. You can gain more actions, however all your unused actions will be lost at the end of your turn, and you will once again start off with only 2. During the main phase, you can use floop abilities, which are indicated on the card and require you to exhaust the card to activate its effect. You may only activate effects, floop, and play cards on your turn. If you have leftover actions, or just nothing to do, you can spend 1 action to draw 1 card from the top of your deck. This can only be done a maximum of 2 times per turn on your turn. All the actions you can take during the main phase can be done in any order. Once you are done with your main phase, you enter the fight phase. Here, all creatures that are ready, aka not exhausted, must attack. A creature can only attack what is in its lane, other than itself. The turn player chooses what order the creatures fight in. To indicate a creature is fighting, you must move it to the top of your landscape and turn it sideways. Creatures that are attacking each other deal damage equal to their attack to each other's defenses. The damage is recorded with the damage tokens. The damage is done simultaneously, and the creature deaths are resolved. Only the turn player exhausts his creatures during a fight. Creatures that attack in an empty lane deal damage directly to the opponent, equal to their attack. All creatures who are able to fight must fight. This is a key part of the game. Activated effects or cards cannot be played during the fight phase. The fight phase ends when no other creatures are able to attack. It is important to note that only the turn player's creatures can attack. The end phase is simply the end of your turn, where card effects that happen at the end of your turn resolve in the order that the turn player decides. Once everything has been resolved, it's your opponent's turn. Playing cards in Adventure Time Card Wars is a lot simpler than it looks. Every card has a number at the top left-hand corner. That number represents the card's action cost, which is how many actions you need to play that card. In the top right-hand corner, there is a symbol. That symbol represents what type the card is and what landscape is required to play it. If you do not remember which symbol represents which landscape, just look near the middle of the card under the picture. There will be the landscape type the card is, as well as whether the card is a spell, building, or creature. Owning a card is not enough to be able to play it. Even if you have enough actions to play the card's cost, you need to control the same amount of face-up landscapes as the card's action cost to play it, and those landscapes must be the same type as the card. It sounds complicated, but it's not. Let's say I have Embarrassing Bard in my hand, and I want to play him. I would need to have 2 face-up Blue Plains landscape tiles in order to play him. 2, since it's his action cost, and Blue Plains landscape, since he is a Blue Plains card. I can decide to play him in any lane I want, and he does not need to be played on a Blue Plains landscape. I just need to own 2 to be able to pay his cost and play him. Now, let's move on to card types. There are 3 types of cards: creatures, buildings, and spells. Each card can be identified by looking near the middle of the card and reading what landscape it's from and what card type it is. Cards can only be played on your turn and during the main phase. Creatures are easy to identify as they have numbers at the bottom which represent their attack and their defense. The attack is on the bottom left next to the red sword symbol, and the defense is on the bottom right next to the blue shield. Creatures are an important part of the game since they are the easiest way to deal damage to your opponent. A creature that fights in an empty lane deals damage equal to its attack to an opponent's hit points. When you play a creature, you choose a lane and place it onto the landscape in that lane. A lane is essentially one of your landscapes and the opposing landscape combined. Once a creature is on a lane, you cannot switch it unless you have a card effect that does so. You can, however, replace a creature in a lane with another creature, but the old creature goes to the discard pile. You can only replace a creature that isn't currently exhausted. Buildings are sort of like equipment for your lane. You pay their cost and put them into play at the bottom of your landscape tile. Buildings only affect the lane they are in and only your side, unless otherwise specified by the card. Buildings cannot be replaced unless you have a building on all your other lanes, and only buildings that aren't exhausted can be replaced. The same restrictions of action cost and landscape costs that apply to creatures also apply to buildings. Spells are one-time use cards, unless otherwise stated. To play a spell, you must simply meet the action cost and landscape cost requirements, just like creatures and buildings. When you play a spell, it never actually comes into play. Its effect occurs, and then it goes straight to the discard pile. So if all your lanes are filled, it doesn't matter. You can still play a spell so long as you meet the requirements. Read spell effects carefully. Some effects might not be what you think. Spells, just like creatures and buildings, can only be played on your turn. The final type of card, or rather tile, are landscapes. You select appropriate landscapes based on the costs of your deck. If your deck has high-cost Cornfield cards, then you should probably use at least 2 Cornfields. If you have only Cornfield cards, then you only need to use Cornfield landscapes. You are only allowed to have a maximum of 4 landscapes. You arrange those landscapes side by side in whatever order you want. Then, both you and your opponent connect your landscapes to form a 2x4 rectangle playing field. Lanes are vertical segments made up of one of your landscapes and one of your opponent's landscapes that mirrors it. It is important to note that there is no such thing as rainbow landscapes. Rainbow cards have no landscape requirements. You simply need to control any landscape or landscapes to play them. Also note that face-down landscapes no longer count as landscapes of whatever type they were. They now count as mud landscapes, which currently have no use. Landscapes can only be changed when the game is over, unless otherwise stated by a card effect. A card that has 0 cost, or has been reduced to 0 cost, requires no landscapes to be played, meaning that a Cornfield card with 0 cost can be played even if you don't control a face-up Cornfield landscape. Well, that's it for the in-depth tutorial on Card Wars, the card game. Don't forget to visit AdventureTimeCardWars.com if you like the game. Hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoyed, and leave comments below if you have any questions, comments, or grievances. I'll be doing a video on hero cards later on, as well as deck builds and reviews. Thanks for watching.
Do you?
don't know what Ice King means?
Yeah, I know what Ice King means. A big nerd.